You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always is my good friend
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And we are missing a host today. Mike is actually having to work.
Yep.
I guess he's got to do
somebody
some
has to keep our phones working and going.
I know, right? He's got to keep the world turning with that AT&T stuff so that we have internet to do this. So
that's
good
right.
for him. Well, before we get started, we'd like to shout out to A Power Batteries. They are giving us a discount once again. It is Park Flyer Podcast, so it's FPC 10, and that gives you a discount on your A Power batteries. They are a great addition to your fleet, and on top of that, we're getting a discount from them. So anyway, shout out to those guys. Go to rcbatteriesusa.com.
The way you said that,
and check them out.
It just sounds kind of weird the way you said that.
What?
Well, because you didn't say it phonetically. It just seems weird when you say things and you don't say it phonetically.
Oh, well, how would you say it?
Papa Bravo.
That makes sense. Well, with us today is Eric Haddad. He is joining us from El Paso, Texas. He has been on our show before. He owns 3D Aeroventures. And Eric, welcome once again to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. We love it. We have seen you have been a very, very busy beaver since we've had you on. It was about 4 months ago or so at the top of the year, I think.
I think it was right before your electric festival in Arizona in February.
It was.
That's right.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And you've been busy. We talked about the Infinity Wing, which you have relabeled X100.
Yep.
I will tell you that I am really digging the gray and yellow paint scheme. That thing
cool, right?
looked really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just straight off the printer. That's not painted or anything. So just print the different parts in different colors.
Now that is pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's been cool to see. I have a whole user group set up now on Facebook, and so it's been cool to see people's individual builds, how they choose to do the color schemes and stuff. So
yeah, well, I hadn't checked that out, but I will have to. Yeah. So, so your website's up and running. It's 3daeroventures.com.
Mm-hmm.
And they can also follow you on Twitter, I think.
YouTube, I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Facebook at 3D Aeroventures, Instagram at 3D Aeroventures, and then youtube.com/3D Aeroventures is where I'll keep doing videos on there as well. So
they can, I've seen your videos as well. And okay, so here's a question about the Infinity Wing. We'll start with that because I know you've got some new products, and we're going to get to those. But the Infinity Wing was what we were talking about last time.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, when you flew it last time, you flew it kind of in the park or in the area where you kind of landed on grass. But I noticed in one of your videos, you actually landed at the field. How does that 3D printer stuff stand up when you're landing on asphalt?
So I reworked the design, I think, a little bit, in preparation for selling it. So I designed a belly wheel on the inside and some little skids that are printed in place so that it can land on a paved runway. So I mostly fly off the paved runway.
Right.
You still have to hand launch it. And I think hand launching is kind of a lost art. And so we've had some people that are trying to launch it at like a 60-degree angle, and it just stalls right away and almost hits them.
Yeah.
So like this one, it's tossing in it. The 3D printed planes are a little heavier. So the power setup we recommend is plenty, but you got to get the speed up right away. So it takes a little heavier throw, nice and level with full power, and it does fine. But if you throw it too steep, it'll stall right away on you.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, I can see that.
So I have been batting around the idea of like designing a takeoff trolley that basically detaches right when you lift off the ground, just to help people have a little more success on their maidens.
Right. Now the ME, what was the ME? 10. What was the one that he had?
That left funky, fat looking flying wing.
Yeah. And it actually had a trolley.
Yeah.
So that'd be
maybe fun to play with.
Mike, AK Mike had one up in Alaska, and we tried forever to get it to launch.
It's the Messerschmitt.
Yeah.
The 109.
What is it?
No, not the 109.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
Rain fart.
Not 262. What is that?
No,
one?
that's the twin engine one. So anyway, I can't think of it. If one of you guys can remember, but
I'll come back to it in a minute.
so so that's amazing that the Infinity Wing is successful, I guess, for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of people order it, which is cool, and starting to build it and fly it. And so, the biggest issue, like I said, is people having issues hand launching it.
Right.
But once it's in the air and up to speed, it handles awesome, and it looks awesome in the air. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So I know we were having issues with the video. I don't know if I'm back yet or not.
Yeah, you are.
But if you see it, okay. So last time we were talking about this Infinity Wing, and I mentioned on our podcast that my uncle used to build this little little aluminum can paper airplane. So I actually put one together last night, and I'm going to set it right here. As you can see, it says 3D Aeroventures.
Nice.
And it is actually a circle. And like I said, it looks kind of like, a Burger King crown, but this thing will fly almost 100 yards.
Is it just is it doubled up, or is that one thickness of paper? Or
it is doubled.
Up, so
yeah, it's rolled right here, doubled,
like
and then it just kind of sticks. Yeah, so it kind of sticks in there. And then if you want, you can actually put a little bit of reflex in these two little tabs. I know our listeners can't see, but
this is good pod.
Yeah, it's just a little circle, and then you hold it like this, and you launch it, and when you do, it just all the way across the room flies. Yeah,
cool.
It's great.
Yeah.
So I've won many paper airplane contests with that little thing, and it reminded me of your Infinity Wing. So that was
people laugh at you when you bring it out. Like, what's this?
They do. They look at it and they go, "What is that?" And I just look at them and I go, "It's an airplane." And they go, "No, it's not." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay. Well, give yours a huck, and then I'll see how far yours goes." And then this just glides straight. Now, depending on how you build it, sometimes the weight will actually get it to turn. Or if you launched it too hard, it will just go up in the air and then come down.
Yeah.
But anyway, I will post a picture of it on our Facebook page so people can see what it looks like. So it'd
be cool to see if you can find any instructions on how to build. How to.
I don't know. The problem is it has to be really uber lightweight. I don't know if you could 3D print it, maybe out of the new product, but we'd have to look at it and see. All right, cool. So on to the cool stuff. You have some new products out.
Yeah, one that's available, and then working on another one right now. Should be ready next month. So I'm looking.
Now hold off on that one because I want to talk a little bit about that one here coming up. But the new ones that you have coming out, as you say, you're getting mini with it, which I loved it on your video. That was pretty cool. And so why don't you bring us up to, you built a sport cam and a micro sport cam.
Yeah. So the larger sport cam, I'm still working on that one. It was inspired by the Air Cam, which is a pretty popular home built aircraft that it was originally designed in conjunction with National Geographic.
Oh, wow.
As like a video platform. I think they designed it to do videography and aerial photography like in the Congo.
Oh, okay.
So it needed to be, a pretty robust plane, and it has some redundancy with a twin engine pusher, and the pilot can sit way up in the nose and just have like a full 360 view. So anyways, did a bigger version of that. So still working on prepping that one, but I wanted to, and kind of the lockdowns and quarantine inspired me to do something a little more fun and accessible for people that are 3D printing a plane for the first time. So I decided to adapt that design to a micro version. So it's got only about a 27-inch wingspan, kind of similar to like the micro planes that Horizon Hobby puts out, about those size.
Well, UMX planes.
Yeah, UMX stuff. Yep. I simplified it, made it a little single engine pusher, and if you print it in some certain unique materials, which are becoming more and more accessible, you can get it in the sub 250 gram class, which is kind of nice.
Now, are you talking about like the PLA light stuff that Matter Hacker has?
Yeah, Matter Hacker sells it, and so the manufacturer is called Color Fab.
Color Fab.
Yeah. It's a really interesting material. It's PLA based, but it has a foaming technology. You print it at a higher temperature than standard PLA, and once you get to those elevated temperatures, it starts to foam.
Wow!
And it's like 40% the density of standard PLA, so you can print super lightweight parts.
Well, it sounds like you got to tweak a little bit with your settings.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So you're actually, the reason it's expanding as it prints, right? So if you were to print it with the exact same settings as PLA, but just higher temp, then your walls would come out really thick.
Right.
So you push out less, you program your slicer to push out less material than normal. So you're pushing out like 40% the material that you would with standard PLA. So that's why you're hitting like 40% the weight. Because it's foamy, but actually prints really nice, and you get really good layer adhesion and fairly clean surfaces. It sands and paints really well. So
now I'm going to tell you just one word: wow. On
yeah.
the Sport Cam video, when I watched it and watched all 4 of those things building at the same time, I was just like, okay, that's incredible. I mean,
on the bigger Sport Cam.
Yeah. It just, and I know that's kind of based. These are based off the big one, but.
Sure.
I just was like, holy smokes, man, watching that thing just go up. And then I'm thinking, wow, that is amazing watching, an airplane being built. It is kind of cool.
If you would have told me as a kid who was, with my dad building planes out of sticks, that
right,
you can just start a printer overnight and you've got an airframe.
Wake up the next morning and have an airframe ready to go.
It's pretty cool.
Well, it sounds a lot like you're printing with Gorilla Glue, because that's really what happens to Gorilla Glue. It
I guess
up
so.
and, and I mean, I just pour that in there and build up a frame with the Gorilla Glue.
Yeah,
make it cementish, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an exciting material. It's a little more flexible than some of the more rigid plastics, but
right,
there's definitely some opportunity to then maybe look at doing some fiberglass coating and to stiffen it up, and you'd still probably be lighter than your standard PLA or ABS.
No kidding.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
An interesting thought to fiberglass
yeah.
plastic plane.
Yeah, you would probably have to sand it a lot, to get it to. I mean, I don't know. I guess if it wasn't, it doesn't really matter, because the fiberglass, when it touches, if there's place for the epoxy to go.
Yeah.
But I would think that the epoxy would add so much weight to it.
I've seen people have success using like a water-based polyurethane instead of epoxy.
Yeah.
So it's thinner and a little bit lighter.
Right.
But
well, that makes sense, because that's what I use on foam a lot. When I do the foam, you put it on there.
Yeah.
So you made this in. I thought the other interesting thing was that you made it in both a tail dragger and a nose wheel. And I watched it. That's pretty amazing, pretty intuitive to be able to do both, or to think about it as both. And you're just changing where the landing gear is.
Yeah. So when you put it on, it is permanent. I mean, they get glued on, but you have to decide before you actually build it which way you want to go.
Oh, gotcha.
But so I guess, I didn't want to add a bunch of weight with screws or to be able to pop them off.
Right.
But I kind of wanted it to be something that not necessarily a novice pilot, but someone who is still kind of working on takeoffs and landings could go to a tricycle version. And I actually really enjoy flying that version. Instead, but
which is pretty funny. I really think that's pretty funny, because I back at my old club up in Alaska, I had these 2 old timers, and that was what they would argue about.
Yeah,
they would have a plane, it would crash or something, and they were talking about repairing it, and the guy's like, "Well, this will be really sweet once you turn it to a tail dragger." And the guy's like, "What are you, insane? You tricycle gear, that's the way to go. Then you can land here and you can do this. Well, that's why you need to have a tail dragger.
Yeah.
Then you can land in such as." And they would just go back and forth for hours, or they'd come up to somebody, they'd be having trouble taking off. Well, you know what your problem is? Tail dragger.
Right.
If you just move the gear back, do this, and turn it to it, or move it forward, you'd have a perfect tail dragger, and you'd be able to take off, and you'd be able to, or you just need a smaller prop, and then you wouldn't be clipping the grass.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, it was insane.
Yeah, so, it's definitely a big debate. And this one I wanted to do it to have a tricycle version, because the motor's mounted so up high, and you get a little bit of kind of forward pitching moment if you go quick on the throttle. But once the speed's up, it tracks nice and straight. Once you get some airflow over the horizontal stab. But with the tail dragger, if you're not used to holding some back pressure and then kind of slowly letting off to let your tail rise, if you just jump the throttle, it'll nose over.
Right.
So it doesn't really do that with the tricycle gear. It's just a little bit more flexible for people that aren't experts yet with a tail dragger.
So I have to ask, and not to put you on the spot, and you don't have to,
Sure.
You can lie if you want, but during the video you were talking about trying to figure out the weight and balance on the thing and the CG moment, right? Because it would pitch up or pitch down, and you gave the formula M equals, what is it, C times
Sure.
F, the
Yeah.
moment times what?
The moment
Anyway,
equals force times distance.
Force times distance, right?
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that was something that was right off the top of your head, or you actually had to go look that up, because I started laughing that, I have a degree in aviation, so I was kind of like,
Sure.
oh, I see what he's doing, but it just was funny. It was a nice
physics
lesson.
Formula, yeah. I mean, that I just know from school, but
yeah.
But I did have to do quite a bit of research to see which way to actually go with the motor thrusts, because a lot of people were saying, no, you need to push it so that the thrust line's going through the CG.
Right.
Which would be opposite of what I ended up having to do. So I actually did experiment with that.
Yeah.
I did 3 different versions with the motor basically tilted up. So the thrust line's going through the CG of the wing instead.
Right.
And it progressively got worse. And so the last version, I could barely get it off the ground and it just snapped.
That's funny. That's a lot of PLA being thrown around out there.
Yeah. So once I started going the other way, forcing a little airflow down and getting the horizontal tail in the prop wash, it dramatically improved things.
Yeah, I'm wondering how that would have changed with height on that as well, because I know that like if you look at a Bixler or some of the other pushers, they've got a really tall, thrust line up top, and they don't have to bend it as much. Yours looks like it's bent pretty far to create, airflow. But I think if you would have come up a little bit, and you probably couldn't because of the size of it, but I'm wondering what difference that would have made if you would have not had to put it, if it's standing taller, you might be able to push the thrust line through the CG. But
it's so close. I mean, it's a small plane, right?
It is.
And so the motor is so close to the center of gravity as well. It's not that far behind it,
right?
So you have to do a pretty aggressive angle to get it going through this. Get the thrust line going through the CG. So you're just wasting a ton of thrust by having it angled so much. It's just forcing the plane downwards almost.
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting experiment.
Now you could have moved it further back towards the CG too, though, right? I mean, if you moved it if you moved the propeller a little closer to the CG, it probably wouldn't have had as great of a pitching motion, right? Because you were probably, for that small of an airplane, you were ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch away.
Above or
no,
or
towards
behind?
it, you were behind it.
It's more about how far above the
Above
CG.
it.
That's the lever arm basically. So if I were to lower it down so that it's kind of in line horizontally with but I couldn't do that because then the propeller would strike the fuselage.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned that on your video. So, yeah.
But if you look at the full scale, a lot of full scale designs that are similar, and I couldn't look at physical, or I didn't find any physical plans, but I found a few 3 views and just side views but a lot of them have that thrust angle like that.
Right. Yeah.
Along with the wing incidence having a couple degrees of up incidence as well, which this one does. So.
Right. Well, I thought it was interesting too that you figured out to put the horizontal stab upside down as a wing.
Yeah.
Because that actually creates a high pressure on the top side as opposed to the bottom.
Creates a little downforce.
Yeah. Which is what they do with race cars, right? That's how they do. Yeah. If you looked at a race car, Formula One car, it actually has a downforce wing on the back, not just a regular flying wing. So, very interesting.
I think, a lot of people, there's a misconception that that's a wing back there. I mean, it is.
Right. It is. But
if you have it generating positive lift, you're going to have a hard time landing.
Correct. Yeah. So it actually it negates the front part of it. So it's downforce. That downforce wing is a good idea. That's a good way to describe it.
But actually, it flies pretty well, and I can get it slowing down pretty nicely if I program some flaperons into the ailerons.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that too. How do you like it with the flaperons? Does it affect your turning at all, or now because you have both the ailerons and rudder and elevator, right? So it's 4.
Yeah. So I've programmed some mixing into it with the rudder, so I don't really have to worry about coordinating turns on my own. So that helps. But I actually kind of like just flying it around with half flaps down all the time. It just, I don't know, makes it fly a little gentler and
a little slower.
But I put a ton of throw in the ailerons to do, in the control throws to do some fun aerobatics and stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, it looked like it rolled pretty well. I mean, it at least did some pretty good stuff. Yeah. Have you ever thought about increasing the camber on the wing? Making it a little bit fatter, and maybe it'll fly a little slower without the
a little camber. Yeah, I think this is just the first of kind of the micro-sized planes, and so I've been really happy with the way it came out. So I'll be doing some other designs, and I thought about just doing it as, kind of an old school kind of single layer wing that's heavily cambered, like the first kind of micro Piper Cubs that came out and stuff were basically just a heavily cambered wing. So I might experiment with that a little bit. I have a little bit of concerns with strength of it being 3D printed.
Yeah.
But
so you did mention in your video there that you had, the way you built this wing was you were able to go a little bit different way than in the bigger ones because of the size. So it looked like you created like, ribs, normal ribs, because it looks like a normal, fabric covered type airplane.
Sure.
And then you actually put I don't know what you call them, the longer pieces
yeah.
of the left and right.
So what looks like ribs on the wing is just simulated. It's just to simulate like a fabric covered wing.
Oh, I gotcha.
How it's kind of wavy on the top.
Right.
So there actually aren't any, what would you call that?
Ribs.
Perpendicular ribs in there.
Right.
It's just there's just 3 longitudinal or long length ribs going through it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the normal way for the larger 3D printed planes is kind of a zigzagging, crisscrossing rib structure that if you imagine it building on a 3D printer, they're kind of building up at a 45 degrees and crisscrossing each other so that they can self-support.
Mm-hmm.
So if I build a wing sitting straight up, having your typical kind of traditional rib throughout, it wouldn't be able to build because there'd be nothing in there to support it as it's printing. So you shift everything to at least 45 degree angles.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, you know what? That's something I wouldn't even really be thinking about it, because I think on that, that longitudinal line, not building it up this way and having to, cause it to hold itself.
Layer at a time.
So it's more about, it's a balance between designing for the 3D printing process and then also getting the same strength you would from like a traditional rib.
Wow. Okay. Well, that totally blew my mind just right there. I'm out. Yeah. I'm out. I'm not that smart.
That's what's nice. These microplanes, even like the horizontal stabs or the smaller parts, you could just get away with just having an external wall. You wouldn't really even need any ribs. They're so small that it's strong enough just like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there is only one little horizontal rib in each, like the vertical stab and the horizontal stabs.
Wow.
In those. So yeah. So
Lark, how small of a printer can you use for this particular?
So that one I designed this for a 180 millimeter cube. So I know there's like a Prusa Mini is the smallest one I've got, which has 180 millimeter by 180 millimeter by 180. So
that's perfect because AK Mike, the monoprice Delta that I got him, that's about what his printer is printing out. So
okay, yeah, I think it would be fine. The height is the big one, so I know you have to have at least 180 on the Z height. Okay, but you could actually get away with smaller than that on the. I think you can go all the way down to 150 on the XY.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's another like the biggest goal with this is just to kind of make it more accessible for people and because it can be daunting to buy something with 50 parts to print out and
right
a little larger and you put all that time into it, you don't know. So these smaller planes, just you feel a little bit less timid to experiment with and try different materials and different finishing options and stuff like that.
Right. And then on the market, I mean, there's just a bunch, I'd say about 5 within the past, couple of months that have come out that are right in that range.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And, for a beginner and stuff. Because
for sure.
Like I said, for me, my G-Tech, the biggest thing I've been messing with more and more and more, I think I have it all dialed in, and then I'll discover something new.
Yeah.
In the sense of, like, for example, the biggest thing I was working on the past month was making holes. Okay. So my extruding rate was coming out perfect. My outer dimensions for for a cube, a calibration cube was spot on. But if I printed out something and I had a 2 millimeter hole, a 5 millimeter hole, they were always under extruded, or I always had to drill them out quite a bit. Or if I was printing out something that was had an amount of dimensional accuracy, the holes would be off.
Yeah.
And I'll give you another example of that. I was trying to reprint out a fan, a cooling fan for my printer. The first one that I had printed out was delaminated. I didn't have the temp high enough, so it was slowly delaminating. So I said, oh, well, I have some PTEG filament, and I was going to reprint it out in that. I did, and the dimensional holes were just off. And I was thinking, well, this is dumb. Why did the guy, he didn't design, maybe I have a different model number. Maybe, I got I have a B model as opposed to an A model that guy designed it for. So I redesigned his stuff and I made the stuff work. But the more and more I thought about it, or I read a couple of articles, I thought maybe my hole size were off.
Uh-huh.
So sure enough, I was able through Cura. They have
it's like a compensation for
compensation for holes.
Yeah,
so I started messing with that, and the next thing you know, I nailed my hole size, and I was like, woohoo! And then everything started lined up, and things just started printing out right.
Yeah,
so I was loving it. So yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, and I keep saying to people, when they start this hobby, is the first thing to do is forget about trying to print something out. Just sit down and calibrate what you're making. Your printer. It's key, especially if you're going to be making planes.
Yeah, for sure.
And, because you're doing really thin walls, real intricate stuff, and it has to be dramatic. You have to have that dimensional accuracy.
Yeah,
or else it's going to come out all foobar.
Yeah, and some of the slicers, like Cura, has so many settings that you could just get into, just going down a rabbit hole with trying to chase something.
Oh yeah.
So I would say start with the kind of 10 most important settings. Just to get your material dialed in, and then once you get that dialed in, then start playing with other things to maybe increase your quality even further from there.
Well, Jay is the king of the rabbit hole, man. He goes down those all the time.
That's how you found me. That's I'm glad you
exactly.
That's true.
That's awesome. Well, so I noticed that you on the minis, you said that you had painted, because one's red, one's blue, right? And you had painted that leading edge, but on your X100 Infinity Wing, you actually printed in a different color. So do you have that ability? I mean, you did a really great job with painting all that stuff in the video, but I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be easier to, print out in a whole different color of the PLA.
Sure. So with these ones, I wanted to show, because I kind of recommend experimenting with this lightweight PLA, and it only comes in either white or black.
Right.
So I wanted to at least show people what you could do with it.
Okay.
I just like the way it flies so much better. I mean, it flies fine with regular PLA, so that's definitely an option. And anybody who purchases it comes with a separate set of files that are optimized more for just standard PLA.
Okay.
So you could certainly just print whatever color you wanted to with standard PLA.
Oh,
and I've flown it with standard PLA as well, and it flies fine with the same power setup. It's just a little hotter on landing.
Well, yeah, because you're carrying around the weight, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can get it down to like 210 grams with the lightweight stuff.
Wow.
And then it's hovering around between 300 and 320 grams with standard PLA.
So it uses what kind of motor?
So it's a little quad motor,
and
it's pretty readily available. Emax, I think, is the original manufacturer of it. And then Flight Test, if you know those guys.
Sure. Right.
They have their own kind of co-branded version of it.
Right.
But it's Emax MT 1806 motor, and then I think it's 1806 radial or something is what Flight Test calls it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a little 2280 kV motor. And I'm running it on a 2S, like 650 milliamp, but even if you can, it'll take a 3S. So I'm going to experiment with some 3S batteries on the standard PLA versions.
Like
just to get
like an 850 3-cell or something.
Yeah. Or even a 450 3-cell is about the same weight as a 650 2-cell.
Yeah.
So
that's always been a big discussion between Jay and I, because I'm a big proponent of the 2-cell. I feel like it has a lot better energy management than the 3-cells.
Mm-hmm.
The 3-cells to me give a lot more punch right off the bat, but they fall off so much quicker than the 2-cell. The 2-cell, just doesn't seem to be. It seems to me to last longer. And I use a 2206, not the 1806, but I use a 2206 in all of my little park flyers. The one that you can see sitting behind me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it runs 5 minutes on a 450 2-cell. I put a 3-cell on it because it'll take both. I downsize the prop on it, and I can only get a couple minutes out of flying it. And it's kind of cool. I can hover it a little bit better. On the 3-cell, I get a lot more vertical punch out of it. But on the 2-cell, it just goes slower. I mean, it's not as fast, and it doesn't turn as fast propeller wise, but it just seems to float around. So it'll be interesting to see how you feel about, the experiment, because I've done it since way back when. Jay and I, one of our first podcasts, he talked about, when I visited him in Alaska, and we had both built these slow fly 28s, and he used a 3-cell, with a little smaller prop. I used a 2-cell with just slightly bigger prop, and we basically had the same performance all the way around. So it was.
I've been happy with the 2-cell on this little micro. I can get 8 to 10 minute flights pretty easily.
That's phenomenal.
Which is cool. I mean, and it doesn't need to be. It flies pretty quick at full throttle. So I wanted something that would, was light enough to be able to slap on this lighter version, but also more powerful enough to be able to power the heavier PLA version.
Right.
And so I think I found the perfect motor for that. I hate to hamstring people into having to just get one manufacturer motor, but it was one that I found that was the most kind of globally available that would fit on here.
Well, that was smart. So
yeah.
All right. So the micro line is available currently, right? You can download the plans right now, and
and there's you can download a build guide for free, and actually every plane I put up you'll see a link where you could download sample parts if you just want to. If you've never done it before, you can download some sample parts for free and play with it to see if you can get the quality right.
I highly recommend people do that.
Yeah.
First. Just grab that sample part, print it out, and see what happens. And if you get a Frankenstein looking thing, you can it just saves you a lot of time that you can dial your machine in prior, and
And even then, if you're having a ton of trouble, there's a lot of resources on Facebook, and RC Groups has a whole thread on just 3D printed planes that has now broken out into hundreds of other threads for specific planes and specific subjects.
Absolutely.
So,
and the key is that you print something out and you take a picture of it, and then you post it on the board and say, I'm having this problem. Point it out. Describe what PLA you're using, what temperature you're putting it at, what slicer you're using.
Exactly.
It sounds like that's a lot of information, but believe me, folks, it helps if you put a ton of information out there for people to help you, because I was having a problem, like I said, with the hole stuff. And then right after that, I was like, woohoo, I can print holes. And then I went to make a crisscross pattern see that little Delta behind me there. So anyway, it had a bunch of holes on it. I wanted to cover the holes that were in throughout the body with just a little simple louver or grid pattern. And I used my printer just to make something out. And so I designed something, went to print it out, and it wouldn't print the minute it was getting into the crisscross, it would print out some and it wouldn't print out others. And it turned out it drove me crazy. I mean, I redesigned it. I spent 2-3 days on this thing, just driving me nuts. And it turned out it was the hole setting in Cura.
Yeah. So it was good for the holes, but it was affecting this other part. Got it.
Exactly. And I have I guess that we're started doing, either the grids or the crisscross patterns. Cura thought that those were holes.
Oh.
And because they were so thin or whatever, that it was trying to, make sure that they were all the right size. And, some, in the middle, it would try to print those out, but the ones on the edges, it wouldn't. And I'm suspecting that it's trying to make a perfect hole.
Yeah.
Well, it's only 3/4 of a hole, and it was just confusing it.
Yeah.
So, just stuff like that. It definitely helps to, like you said, get the information, go on those threads, talk to people, and show them pictures.
Yeah.
So that you can go, this is what I'm having. And it's amazing that people can actually figure out what your problem is.
Yeah.
And help you.
Even then, you can give, I definitely agree with you. You're going to screenshot of all your kind of settings that you've got, and here's this picture of the physical part that I'm having trouble with.
Exactly. Yeah.
But with 3D printing troubleshooting, it can be a number of issues. So you end up walking away from that probably with 10 different pieces of advice that you need to go and then experiment with.
Right.
So, it's a fun, you have to be willing to experiment or just don't get frustrated. Kind of have fun with it.
I guess my biggest thing with 3D printing and where people either walk away or they get so frustrated with it, because they just expect, oh boy, they said this is the easiest to use beginner, who-to-who machine.
Yeah.
And it's going to work right out of the box. And that is not the case.
Yeah.
So if you're listening and you have had problems with your 3D printer, I need the video of you being a Frank, right? Where you take your 3D printer out in the yard and jump up and down on it. Start screaming at it, stomp all over it.
Frank would not do very good with a 3D printer.
That was funny.
That was a great
Definitely
video.
couldn't be.
It was a good video. So, okay, so now we're to the point where I really want to talk about this airplane, because this is you mentioned in your last visit with us that this is a little bit of a passion for you. I think this is a little bit larger. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a little larger than the Infinity Wing, and there's a lot of effort that goes into this one. And from the photos, I am just amazed at what you've been able to accomplish. But it's not quite out yet. It's the plans are kind of coming up. But why don't you take us through Art Scholl's Chipmunk, because that was an amazing photo on your website.
Yeah, thanks. That was like I think the second or third plane my dad and I ever built growing up, and it's actually still hanging in my dad's garage. But
very nice.
So the old Goldberg Chipmunk, Super Chipmunk.
There you go.
So it's the same size as that one, 64-inch wingspan. I redesigned the fuselage a little bit to be more scale, kind of oval-like aft section of the fuselage, because the Goldberg one's kind of blocky.
Sure.
But so 64-inch wingspan. The prototype is just about done. I just have to hook up the electronics, and so I'll probably fly that next week. And then after, every prototype I'm going through 1 to 2 more set of revisions based on what I learn.
Oh, no
so
kidding.
It's not just design it and I'm done.
Right.
I have to. I'll learn things either the build. I want to simplify something with the build, or getting it prepped at the field, like how to connect everything up. But so I've already got a list of things that I need to tweak on it. And sometimes like the initial design is quicker than going back and revising everything. That's just kind of the nature of CAD.
Yeah, I can actually see that, because, you spend 100 hours, putting this thing together, and then if you changed one thing, it's like a domino effect, right? It changes. Yeah. Oh, well, that's going to change this. It's going to push that out. It's going to make this different. So it's almost like building a house, right? If you move one wall, you just basically should have started from scratch.
Yeah. With 3D CAD, it's similar. I guess to building a house if you move something. But with 3D CAD, you've got all the steps you're kind of building on each other. You can set it up in a way so as long as you're not making too big of a change, if you tweak a dimension on one step, everything else will kind of self-populate from there.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. It's easier said than done.
So
most of the time it just blows up.
So obviously from the photos, and that I just was able to get the photo off your website, but it looks like you've printed the nose in red PLA and the rest of the fuselage in white. Painted. But you did paint it, so it's all one color.
That whole thing was printed in just for this one. If I did it when I do another prototype after this, just because I like that color scheme so much,
right?
To save a little weight, I'll probably print the whole airframe in white, and then only paint the blue and red parts.
Oh, I gotcha.
But this one was all painted in gray. Did like a filler type primer that has a heavier filler in it, so it'll fill in some of the print lines. And so that ended up adding a little bit of weight, all the different paint coats and everything. But
so all up, how much is this going to weigh? So for a 60-inch airplane,
So let me pull up some conversions so I can speak in 2 different units. Because I have it in grams.
Because I was going to say, because we have a worldwide audience, and the Americans need to know what it is in ounces and pounds. The rest of the world can do grams.
So let's do grams to pounds. So I know the first version is heavy because of the weight, and I can fix some things. So the first one's going to weigh around 4,000 grams, which is 8.8 pounds.
Yeah, 8 pounds. Okay.
That's not too bad.
Almost 9 pounds.
Wow.
It's not too bad.
Which is, it's going to fly like a warbird, probably. But if I can get it down to around 3,500 grams or something, it'd be anywhere between 7 and 9 pounds. It would probably fly fine.
Yeah.
So
now, do you have a motor in mind that you're going to build this around, or is it just you're building it and then you're going to have to find something to put it in?
No, I've already got the motor in it in a 6-cell, like a 5,000 milliamp battery.
Yeah, I think you were basing off an E-Flight or something, right?
This one, have you heard of Leopard motors?
I haven't.
They're pretty good. Little bit lower price point motor.
Okay.
Really, really powerful. Actually, that's what I have in the larger Sport Cam twin engine, is a couple Leopard motors. But the one I'm putting in the Chipmunk it's called 5065 380 kV motor. Let me see. I'm pulling up some specs on it. It's basically an E-Flight Power 60.
Right.
Yeah. So similar kind of power plant to what you would expect from a Goldberg Chipmunk, like a 90 size or 90 four-stroke.
Gotcha. Well, it'd be interesting. Most of my motors have been converted out to the torque style motors. I Extreme Flight sells those, and I really like them. They produce a lot of power for what you get, and they actually have some about that size too. I think that are in the 260, 380.
Sells them?
Extreme Flight. And they're the
Okay.
torque. It's their brand. It's a torque motor, but I pretty much converted almost all of mine. I think I have one Scorpion motor left that I bought at the Electric Festival many years ago in one of my airplanes. But most of them I've actually converted over to the torques. I've been incredibly happy with them. They're all 6-cell. Most of my motors are 6-cell batteries on the 60-inch airplane. So I don't know what size you're looking to run off of that, but
yeah, I'll check those out. I mean, I do like to test several different motors. My customer base is pretty global, so a lot of people need to be able to find something in Europe or
that makes sense.
A lot of people buy Carnegie motors,
right?
So.
Well, we've used all of those. I mean, I have a container full of motors of in the boneyard that I liked at one point or didn't, or I changed or something. Jay comes over and opens up my case and goes, "Well, we got a whole new crop of motors in there." Usually the ESCs are still attached to them, so I usually chunk the whole problem and then start over. But
well, I'll have to. I don't know if torque. I'm looking at the torque or the Extreme Flight website. I don't know if they have a motor large enough for the.
If you're going to, there's. I'm not on it, but you can find the one that. If you go to their regular aircraft section and look at a 60-inch balsa wood aircraft, they'll suggest the motor, and it's then you look at that one and it's a 6-cell and whatever that one is. I can't remember now.
Looks like 4016 T 500 kV.
Correct, 500 kV. That is a uber powerful motor. I fly a lot of 3D acro with that one, and it'll haul that airplane around. And if you jump up to the next
for scale aerobatics, then.
So if you jump up to the next size, I think they have a 73-inch airplane, and you look at what that motor. Eventually, the airplane gets big enough that you actually have to go into their X Power motors, which are big. I mean, those are those are for the Turbo Bushmaster and the big, the 10-cell, 12-cell airplanes, but they produce equal to some good power or gas type motors out there. So
gotcha. They have like 60 cc equivalent,
right?
30 cc, awesome,
right? So check those out and let us know if you want to experiment with those. And then what were some of the things that you found a little difficult or have found? I mean, you mentioned in your Sport Cam video that you didn't want to pull the wings off and unhook the motors and everything. So you designed it to where just the wing tips came off basically, and you could just plug it in. So I'm wondering if there was something like that in the Chipmunk, from a design aspect where you said, man, I really, it's a big airplane and I don't want to, do I do one full wing or do I have two wings or how did that work?
So I did redesign it. The Goldberg one is a full wing.
Mm-hmm.
That you pull off and screw from the bottom. So this, right. I left the, what would you call that? The under the belly, I guess, as part of the fuselage. And so the wing halves come off.
Okay.
So you can screw on each wing half. A lot of basically like the larger scale extras and edges are similar to that.
Now, are you screwing it from the inside to where it pulls it up into the fuselage?
From the bottom.
Oh, from the bottom.
So there's 2 screws for each wing, and then I've got a carbon fiber rods going through the wings as well, since it's an Aerobat.
So that's the same function that the Motion RC guys had figured that out too. They have 2 tabs, and when you slide the body together, there's a screw that goes into each.
So mine has tabs on the wing. And actually, the Infinity wing, prior, when I talked to you guys before, the wings were all glued on permanently. And now that it's for sale, all the wings can come off if you want.
Very nice.
So, and it's a similar setup. So there's tabs attached to the fuselage, and then they index into the wings, and then you just screw it together from the bottom.
Wow, that makes it very easy to go to the field with just 4 screws,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I think the Chipmunk actually would benefit from leaving a section of the wing attached to the fuselage up to the landing gear, and then just being able to pull the outer panels off.
Mm-hmm.
I may look at redesigning it that way, but I don't know. We'll see.
Now, this one, if I'm not mistaken, did the Chipmunk have retractable landing gear?
He had two versions.
Yeah. The first one didn't,
So,
and the second one did.
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think what I might do actually, I like the look of the wheel pants. So that's the first version I have, is just the fixed gear. But it wouldn't be too difficult for me to then come around as a second option. You could purchase the separate wing package for an extra $5 or $10 for the retract version.
Right.
So I'll probably release it first as a fixed gear, and then start designing a retract gear version.
Now, I can understand, in my head, I can kind of wrap my head around the fixed gear. You can actually make, something that holds the gear in place, and, you can kind of bolt it in there. But now if you put a retractable gear, you're actually having to carve out material where the gear sits inside. It totally changes that structure of the wing. And now you're going to have to do something probably very similar to my Skymaster L39, where when you take the wing off, half of the landing gear is hanging out of the wing, because it retracts into the main body and not just the wing, right? So you're going to have to change some of that, I think, I don't think it retracts all into the wing. I think part of it's into the fuselage too, right?
Well, I think the Chipmunk, to do it scale, it doesn't retract like a Mustang, where it's going towards the motor. That one retracts backwards. So only half the wheel is kind of going backwards into the wing.
Right. And so it sticks out. It's the same. The Russians did that with their Yak 52. It only retracts halfway, so a little bit of the wheel sticking out.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So now you wouldn't have to change the part that stays attached, is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. So I think, it would be pretty easy to adapt. I mean, everything, the fuselage and all the parts would be identical. It would just be creating a separate version of the wing that you could plop some retracts into. That's
really cool. Well, what's what's on the horizon here? You've got this one coming out, so hopefully in the next month or two, I guess you got some little tweaking to do.
I'm shooting for early to mid July on the Chipmunk being available.
Okay.
And I'll do I'd like doing a video for every one of a design, build, and test flight video for each one, just to pique people's interest.
Sure.
And then I'm debating. I think I'll still move forward with doing the larger sport cam, that twin engine one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll finish that up since I've already got it up on the website just as a coming soon.
Gotcha.
And then after that, I've got a whole list of stuff that
Yay!
I don't want to give away too much, but
yeah, sure. We don't want you to spill all the beans, but we know that there's other stuff coming out, so we're looking forward to having some of the new additions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the cool thing with 3D, designing 3D printed ones is just you could do some really unique airframes that have never been modeled before.
Right.
So yeah, I've got a list of some scale aircraft that have never been done before, which is pretty exciting. So
that's amazing.
It's more personally me just nerding out on it. So
well, that's a good thing of having your own company, isn't it?
I'll pull now that I have a little bit of a customer base, I can pull people or get a little bit of a vote going, like, hey, I'm thinking of these 3. What do you guys want to see?
Right.
Which is cool.
So if you ask us what we want to see, Jay and I have told this to a couple of different guys. We want to see a B-52.
Oh, wow. Okay.
all EDF. So there's 8 wings. It's a 12-foot wingspan. Should pretty much just empty out your entire PLA.
Motors.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
we actually mentioned that to somebody. We were interviewing a guy, a manufacturer, and that's when he's like, "Hey, well, what'd you like to see?" And both Jay and I started giggling. We're like, "Hey, we want to see a B-52 because that's got to be the
cool.
the large, and there's nobody makes that, right? I mean, there's a couple of custom ones out there, but it's pretty funny. We just mentioned it because it seems like that would be the most difficult thing. It's got a 12-foot wingspan, 8 motors.
Yeah.
It's hard to transport. It hits all those things that a manufacturer's like, yeah, no, I don't want to even get close to that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a big joke for us.
I have seen, do you guys keep up with like the flight test videos, those guys?
Yeah, we occasionally peruse their stuff, but they just came out with something new, right?
Like a giant, I think one of their customers built a giant one and gave it to them.
Right. Yeah. I think the last one I saw,
that would be a fun one to play with.
Yeah. Well, there were 2 guys that had 2 custom ones that used to go fly them around together, and one of them got, I think, on the landing he kind of tip stalled it and it kind of ripped the wing off. But
oh no,
they are very amazing airplanes to watch fly. They're just really large, cumbersome, and they're just fun to see.
Yeah.
So, but
that wingspan is so huge.
Oh, it is massive. It's massive.
Jay, what do you want to see? What's your
in
you
fact,
could have any plane.
I think I sent you some stuff from our last time we talked, but I'd like to see a Bugatti. I like the swept forward design. It was an old World War II fighter that never went into production. Just had the counter rotating motors in the back. Just looked kind of futuristic for the time that when they designed it. It was supposed to be a racing plane.
You broke up when you said the plane model. Which one?
It's the Bugatti. Golly, let me think of. Let me look that up real quick.
Yeah.
Was it a German airplane?
No. It was French.
Oh, the French airplane, and it looks like a big cigar with twin motors in the back, right?
No, well, not twin motors. It looks like the wings are slightly swept forward. It has counter-rotating motors in the front.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so it's got one in front and one in back?
Send me that.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's oh, yeah. It's the, like, overlapping propellers that
right.
counter-rotate.
One turns one way.
Single engine.
There. Yeah, it's single engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Bugatti Model 100.
Model 100.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Another model that nobody really does is a F-111. I mean, those are military airplanes, but nobody. I don't think anybody has ever tackled an F-111. They did the F-14, which has a swing wing, but they never did the 111. So that's another one down the road. We've kind of mentioned to a couple of people, but those are probably not the most popular airplanes in the world, but they're not iconic. But one of the what Jay and I have been talking about lately is the Bearcat. I don't know why.
I love that plane.
Yeah, I don't know why I all of a sudden, because Jay mentioned when I was down there, he's like, you don't have a Warbird. And I'm like, yeah, everybody's got P-51s or P-38s or P-40s or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sitting around one day and I'm just scratching my head and I was like, if I had to get a Warbird, what would I get? And he sent me a couple of ads off of Craigslist where people were selling their Corsairs and their P-47s. And I don't know why. I started looking around and I found a big Bearcat and I thought, you don't see too many of those, and they sound really good.
Motion RC has a couple Bearcats.
They do, and that's kind of why I was on their website and I found one and I was like, oh, and so I started looking at it and I think it's a VQ models. They call it a dark horse or black horse or whatever, but I think VQ makes it. And if you look at the specs, they're almost identical. And then there's a company out of Texas, believe it or not. I think it's called Texas Warbirds, and they make one in a 96 inch.
Okay.
So it's a lot bigger. I think it's got fiberglass wing on it, but it, obviously these things take a much bigger motor. I mean, you're talking about a DA 120 or 170 or something, to push it around. But I just thought, or one of those, the radio ones.
Of Warbirds, that one's on my list. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I really kind of have a soft spot for it. I don't know why, but it does look good, and it's one of those that you just don't see too often. You get a whole gaggle of P-51s out there, and not really too many Bearcats. So, but I think I liked it.
That one, and I like the Tiger Cat too.
Tiger Cat's
twin.
really cool. The twin. Yeah. Now there are a couple of those out there.
Yeah.
I've seen those fly, and I actually saw a guy not too long ago at one of the events that had one that had 2 Moki radials on it. Wow. Holy smokes, did that thing sound realistic.
That sound is awesome.
It sounded good. And it was just amazing to watch him fly that thing. And he had smoke on it and the whole deal. It was it was pretty close. It was pretty amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
I think just to give you a little teaser, so I'll do the Chipmunk next, and then the larger twin engine sport cam. That one I'll probably make it just like the micro one. I'll have the option of doing a tricycle gear or a tail dragger.
Oh, good.
But then after that, I've got a racing plane. I think is going to be the next one. So it's a concept racing plane, like a Reno racer that with retractable landing gear and everything. It's pretty killer looking. Design.
Well, you can keep us in suspense. We'll hang on for that one. So
yeah.
I might have to have you on when we launch that one, or when you launch that one. We'll have to have you back on.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, cool, other than the new products, your website's going good. Looks like you have a pretty good following. I'm loving your videos. They do. I love the the whole narration behind it, and it is kind of. I don't know why your voice is one of those that relaxes. It's very relaxing. So when I'm watching your video, I'm kind of just sitting here like it's like that whole Richard Attenborough. There's 4 continents. You just kind of get that little feeling of, it's nice and peaceful, and the music is always really nice. So I think you do a really good job. Kudos to you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
And I know that you're sponsored. Cool. If you want to take an opportunity to give a shout out to your sponsor, SolidWorks, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah. So they've sponsored. They really grateful. They kind of got the YouTube channel off the ground for me, or I had to have a day job, and so I typically, to self-fund it is a little difficult.
Yeah,
especially all the time it takes to go into editing, and outside of just building the planes. I mean,
sure.
Just video editing takes days.
Yes.
So SolidWorks is the CAD program I use, and I've been kind of plugged in with them as a developer of some of their YouTube content, and they approached me last year about, instead of buying tutorial content from me and publishing it under their own name, they said, we want you to own the channel and the content, and we'll just sponsor you to get it off the ground. And so
very cool.
The one I just published was the final one under the contract. So unless we renegotiate something else from here on out, I'll be doing it on my own.
Oh,
I've got a really good setup and a good platform now. So it makes a lot more sense for me to continue moving along.
Right. Well, it looks like it's a good software program. I know you just whip through it like it's nothing. I just stand there like I'm a deer in the headlights when it comes to that kind of thing. But obviously, in the hands of a professional, it is a very amazing tool. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, it's definitely thanks. It's a professional grade, so I don't want to get people's hopes up that you can just go on and download it for free. But so it's expensive, but it's one of the most widely used CAD programs out there.
Yeah. Well, I had many years back, I owned, some graphics. I had a graphics company, and I did some stuff with Adobe Illustrator. It's another one of those that, everybody's like, oh, I'll just get Adobe Illustrator. And then they start into it. I'm no professional. I look up to a couple of the guys that I, go out to. But yeah, it's not, people got this idea that, I could just buy it and then just whip out this stuff. And that's not how that works. So yeah, I totally understand, that there is a level of learning, that goes into this, and the learning curve can be very steep. So I caution you to, do your research, make sure that you are familiar with what you're doing. And then if they download your plans, obviously they can reach out to you for some advice, help. Where do they go to do that?
Yeah, so in the build guide, I have my direct email in there, and you can submit queries through their website as well if you have any questions. And then, honestly, I don't have all the answers, so
sure.
Where you get a lot of the help is through some of the forums where I have. So if you're on Facebook, there is a 3D Aeroventures Pilots Alliance on there that there are people that are more well-versed than I am in certain things, and so that's where you'll get a lot of help too, is just getting other actual users building the same thing you are chiming in. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's always good to have everybody else, kind of on the same page, that we can kind of get advice where we need it.
Yeah. It's really cool. the 3D printing community in general, and then having now our own kind of 3D Aeroventures community for people who just really want to help each other out. And, you know, it's not contentious in any way. It's just people like wanting to share what they're learning. So they're kind of like doing the customer service for me, which is awesome.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, it seems like you're busy. The website is 3daeroventures.com, and you can download your plans from there. And I see that you take most forms of payment, and you know, reach out to 3D Aeroventures.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. And like I said, say what?
I said and shekels.
Yep.
PayPal and shekels.
That's it. PayPal and shekels.
Oh yeah, there you go. Shekels, gold.
That's it. Shekels, gold, silver, your mother's bracelet, whatever works. So 3D Aeroventures.
That's shoot me a 6-pack and
there you go. There you go. I don't know if I do that. You're going to have a whole beer truck pull up in front of your house and jump off. Big transport truck full of beer. Yeah. Okay, everybody gets a free plane. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate SolidWorks for setting you up. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Eric. And once again, 3daeroventures.com. You can go in there and see the new airplanes. The new Chipmunk's going to be amazing. I'm excited to see it come out. Excited to watch your videos. You know, Jay and I are going to have to plan a trip to come out and see it. You're kind of halfway between the two of us. So
it's right in the middle.
You know, we'll have to put something.
I mean, I wouldn't mind going to Arizona either. That's where I went to college in Phoenix, so it'd be nice to get back there and see some friends.
Well, that would be cool. Well, if you ever come out, just reach out to us. Yeah. We'll take you over to the field and go fly and bring something, or you can fly one of mine. Either way, I've got a plethora of airplanes that I usually let people go out, and except right now I'm kind of split. What's that?
Well, Jay can drive here and pick me up, and then we'll do another 6 hours to Phoenix.
There you go. That's probably true too. I've spent 13 hours in a car with that man. You may have second choices and just fly.
Yeah. So, Jay, when you go for the festival, do you fly or drive?
Usually I fly.
Yeah, and just fly when you get into the park. You fly Mike's planes. Or what?
Pretty much.
Yeah, usually, or I'll bring one or two planes of my own, and usually AK Mike comes and he uses a golf bag, one of the hard case golf bags, that he got like
good idea.
You know, at a garage sale or whatever, and he throws like his gliders and other planes in that. So I'm thinking about getting one of those next year.
Yeah.
He said that's the funniest thing when he checks in at the curb and he pulls this big golf bag and sets it on the ground because it's full of foam airplanes. There's probably like 6 or 8, I don't know, however many in there. He goes, and these guys will take a deep breath and go, and they'll lift that thing expecting it to be a big heavy golf bag, and they about fall over because it weighs nothing. And they're like, what's in this? And he's like, airplanes.
Yeah.
And they look at him kind of weird, but
it's
pretty funny. So. Well,
that's a good idea, though.
Yeah, it is he did a really good job. He modified it. There's foam on the inside to keep him from moving around. When he was here at the house, he got a new airplane, or it had one, and we kind of modified it to fit into his case. Okay. So we just took some, pink foam and I have a hot wire. We cut it to match the radius of it, and then we just kind of put a couple slots in it to sit down. And he takes the wings off of most of them, so they fit in, long ways, and then the fuselage fits in, and then he kind of turns them opposite each other so that the rudders and everything don't get smashed. But yeah, it was a really good job. He saw it somewhere, somebody had it, and he picked up the idea and modified it. So it's kind of cool to bring, he jumps on a plane and brings all stuff out. So,
that's super cool. Good idea.
And then, like I said, I have so many airplanes. People fly pretty much most of my stuff when I'm out here.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about it. Well, unfortunately.
I was supposed to go to. Is our time up?
No, yeah, but go ahead.
I was supposed to actually do like a speaking gig and man some booths at Oshkosh this year. And it got canceled. I was thinking about how am I going to transport some of the smaller planes. So I might look into doing something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good idea, especially if you can take them apart, because then you can kind of just bubble wrap them and send them away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you wanted to take one or two of them,
Electric Festival next
what's
year.
That?
I was going to say he definitely should come up to the Electric Festival and get a booth, or get a table for next year for sure.
Yeah, I've already got it kind of on the calendar for next February. Do they have it actually scheduled yet, or
always the same week? It's not always the same week. It's usually yeah, it's usually the weekend in between the Super Bowl and the first and the NASCAR race, because there's one weekend in there that Mr. Gallagher actually he likes both to watch both, so he doesn't want to be there on that weekend. But his team will get together, and we can reach out to him, and he can actually put you in the noon demo. That's the best way to do it is if you're in the noon demo. And then he can go out there and I know last year a couple of new vendors came out to do some stuff. Bryce with Critical RC and I actually grabbed a paper and announced for him. So it worked out really well. They got a bunch of really good vendors out there, so you get to come out and fly and talk to people, and it's a big event. So definitely put it on your calendar.
It'd be a blast. That sounds awesome.
So. Well, yes. Unfortunately, our hour is up. We always enjoy having you on our show. Once again, it is 3D Aeroventures, SolidWorks, and we reach out to one of our sponsors, rcbatteries.com. Use our code PFPC10 to receive your discount. That's A Power Batteries. Probably no better batteries out there than those. So all of us are using them now here at the Park Flyer Podcast, and we suggest you use our code and go out and get some on your own. Well,
I think you just converted me. So
now I will tell you that most of the ones I use are 6-cell batteries. So I'm very happy with those. Mike actually got, for his birthday, he got some 2200s, and I'm not really sure what Jay has, but they do make, a range of them, and I have pushed them very hard. And so far almost everybody using them at our club has been very, very happy with them. So
awesome. I'll give them a try.
Yeah, they do a really good job. So, well, we appreciate once again you joining us in the middle of the day. We know you're busy, but taking time out from your busy schedule is always
always makes time for you guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
Not a problem. We congratulate you on your success. I know it's difficult to get launched off the ground, but you've done an incredible job. And,
thanks.
We're looking forward to all the new stuff that's coming out. We will definitely keep tabs on it. If you haven't seen the X100 Infinity Wing, check it out. It is an amazing airplane. The Super Chipmunk that's coming out is also amazing. And if you're into the sport cams or the mini sport cams, take a look at those. And once again, Eric, pleasure to have you on board.
Thanks, Jay and Mike. Thanks.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
No problem.
Well, Jay, you got anything going this week?
I'm going to be flying. I hate when I do that. I'm pointing to my planes behind me.
Yeah, like everybody can see.
I know the fields mowed. Everything's nice laid out. So I figured I have time to get out and fly. Unfortunately, though, it's getting hot out here in Texas, I got to get out there in the morning.
Well, there you go.
To go fly, but it's been kind of wet out here, and now it's dried up, and the heat has come. So
nice and humid.
In the morning.
Well, half of my stuff is down there, so I haven't been able to get to fly here. Jay just pointed out that I actually do have a separate receiver, a separate transmitter, which I totally forgot, radio. So I'll have to break that out. But I have a little training in the middle of this month, and eventually I'll make my way back down to Texas to get all my stuff. So I guess until next time, I'm Michael from here in Arizona.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
We appreciate Eric being on. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.